Hey, what's up? This is a couple things that I forgot to address on. Doesn't really matter if I forgot or not, I'm doing it now. So, anyway, you know, you gotta drive in your life. You have a passion that you want to go out and do. You can't let relationships get in the way of doing that. If you stand back and you look at the relationship and you're constantly begging somebody to allow you that pleasure of whatever benefit, and you're begging and you're begging and you're begging, and they're not doing anything, they're not even moving. Think about the time that you could have been spending trying to just say, okay, fine, and going about your business, seeking your pleasure out and your desire and your passion. And instead, you're showing that person more of what they don't want to see. So, you got to stand firm on who you are. You got to do what's in your heart's interest no matter what. You know, there's so many people in this world that, like I've told people before, it's not like you're never going to meet or see anybody that is going to like you ever again. It's not like you'll never find somebody that's going to just talk and understand you. You know, it's not hard to find people. It's just people make it hard on themselves to be happy, to just be nice. I know that I've caught myself a couple times, quite a few times, you know, you're just around people and you keep seeing them look at the ground. You know, sometimes you just got to smile when you walk in the elevator and say, hey, what's going on? Or, hi, how are you? Whether or not you're in an elevator or not. But it's just that kind of energy that you bring to the situation. If you come in with a half aware energy and then you open it up, it seems kind of fake. So if you're just kind of walking right into it like that's how you are, people subconsciously pick that up. People subconsciously have that feeling that there's nothing to worry about you. You're definitely not something they have to worry about talking to because you have an energy that's natural. You know, and real men and women know this. So, anyway, you really should have that attitude at all times. You know, sure, there's going to be people that they're not going to like you. Nothing that you say, no matter what kind of energy you have to walk up to them, they're going to be pissed off at the world. Or they're pissed off at themselves or something. So, and you got to learn how to deal with that. And I'm sure you have dealt with people like that before, and you've probably been like, okay. Anyway, and you go about your life as if that moment never happened. You might remember it, you may not, because it happens so much in our lives that that's how you know, that's how you should deal with it, right? Anyway, you know, you should always give yourself permission to do what you want to do. I've talked about that so much, but really, you know, if you're not getting what you want out of it, then what are you getting out of it? And if you finally realize after telling yourself, I'm not getting anything out of this, why am I trying to get something out of it when I know it's fruitless? You know, what is stopping you from just moving on? Well, a couple different reasons why, you know, it stopped me in the past because, you know, I've been in relationships that, you know, started off just way too fast. You know, way too fast. Like, you know, you move in with somebody almost like when you first meet them. That's probably not the best thing to do because, you know, you don't have time for space. You don't have time for growth. You sure as hell don't have time for them to think about what you're doing or what you're saying. They're automatically seeing your patterns and they're automatically making their assumptions based on that. And not only are they doing that, but just as fast, they're going to try to think about what they wish they could have. You know, because if you show them little bit, you're giving them a chance to get used to it. If you're showing them a little bit of good, little bit of good, little bit of good, little bit of good, just a little bit of bad, maybe they'll look at that, the bad side is maybe they're just stressed out. Instead of always being and seeing, the side of you that you're stressed out. Because if they see you stressed out all the time, they're going to think that you're either always going to be like this, or that you're overwhelming them with the stress. And if you overwhelm someone with stress, and they haven't gotten used to you enough to know kind of how to tame the beast, and they haven't learned enough love about you, or they don't have enough care about you to know that it should be easy to do that if they just did certain things. If they haven't learned that yet, and they haven't grown a desire to do that, then they won't. There's nothing you can do that will make them want to do it. There's no amount of you putting food on a plate in front of them and saying, here, this is what you can have if you just do this. That doesn't work because it's counterproductive. You're giving too much of yourself away. And in that event, you're even lying to yourself because you're putting out there things that you feel are worthy of what you want. And you have to let people decide that on their own. I mean, if somebody were to come up to you and you say they just really pissed you off, and they're... I'm sure you can definitely think about this. If somebody just really pissed you off, and then say you were even living with them, and you hadn't been together that long, you could... you'd probably get a little pissed off, and you probably wouldn't want to deal with it, right? But then they come home... You're stuck with it. You got to deal with it. And some people don't want to take time to force themselves into it. And sometimes that can cause the other person, like you, to get even more pissed off because the other person isn't actually trying to, work with you, right? This is basically what I'm saying is that you get pissed off when somebody doesn't want to work with you. And other people will get pissed off if you don't want to work with them. Some people get pissed off if you don't give them enough space. I'm sure you would get pissed off of somebody if you didn't give them enough space. So you can't rush into things. Definitely don't rush into things. I don't care how desperate they are. I don't care how vulnerable they are. You can't get with somebody that's vulnerable like that. I know there can be certain things that you might be able to get out of it, but in the long run, it's more trouble than it's worth, You got to make sure that the one that you're deciding to stop dating over is really up to par with, on an intellectual level, can talk to you about these things. Not only talk to you about them, but listen and actively give their opinion, Because, you go up to when you're with somebody and maybe you've been around each other so much, you haven't even had enough time apart to think about what to do together next time you see each other. And so then you get into this process of, well, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Well, no, I really want to do what you want to do because I want to make you happy. And that's okay if you're married. That's okay if you have been together a long time and then you decide to move in and, hopefully if you're going to move in with somebody, you at least get through a few fights. And if you can still deal with each other and the fighting is something that doesn't turn violent, then, maybe then move in. But everybody's going to have their own expression of what violence is. To me, people are going to get into arguments. People are going to get loud. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're a passive-aggressive kind of person and you hold back all your emotions, sorry, you're probably going to be with somebody sometime in your life that's going to yell at you, and you can't make them feel inferior because you hold back all your feelings. It's not really good to hold back all your feelings, like I've said before, but if you think that you're going to get with somebody that's just like you and holds back all their feelings, Jesus, I don't know what kind of disaster you're leading yourself into, but you're living a lie. And you know what? It's hard to tell people that to their face because they'll push against it, People don't want to be forced into doing something. People need to learn on their own. We all know that. But more or less, you need to let them do it. You can't say, if you do this, this will happen. Because then you're treating them like children. Sometimes they'll react like children. They're just going to push away, Some people have inferiority problems with that and their status. So, some people, if you show them the good, no matter how much you try to show them the good, they're thinking about how you're trying to change them. Sometimes people use reverse psychology when it comes to that. I mean, if you're at that point and you can't get over it anyway and people aren't trying to work together, shit, I don't think it's even worth trying to pull that fucking card, because people are going to fight you. They're going to fight you. They probably are just children. I mean, there's a boy's man, there's a girl's woman. If you know the things in your life that you're afraid to show the world, you need to get over those things, because if you don't, no matter whose approval you're seeking, you're going to fall short to yourself, and you're going to try to put it back on the side, and I just don't want to think about it. You got to face things head on, and you got to change your direction. I mean, we grew up in our society. A lot of us didn't have our fathers or our mothers there to kind of guide us into becoming real men or real women. And so whatever kind of pseudo parenting or initiations we had to go through, like boot camp or, football or, camp, little things that are trying to prepare us to be men and women, those don't really count. I mean, you really need to have somebody in your life that is willing to show you that, you need to kill the boy. You need to kill the woman. You need to kill the boy, and you need to kill the girl, and you need to let the man and the woman exist. You can't tell a butterfly to turn back into a caterpillar, because I don't like this. I want to turn back into a caterpillar, and you can't do that. So, and in order to even do that, you need to stay clear on your course. You need to make sure that no matter what happens, you got to stay in control of yourself. You can't just be begging everybody to stay with you, because you're going to miss them. You can't always... You think that it would work, but it's counterproductive. And it's unattractive. People are going to run away from you. People see each other strong because they see strong diversity. They see strong difference. They see real people when they know that they're going to move on with their life anyway, right? Sometimes it'll even confuse, like, what happened? They just changed. They quit begging. I wonder what happened there. And then it makes them think, we didn't grow up going off into tribes and, having to kill a lion to become a man. We didn't have those kind of initiations. And if you look back at every single tribe, and every indigenous walk of life, every single one of them had an initiation from a boy to a man. So you got to make sure that you have to be ready. And it's going to happen when you're not ready anyway. So you have to keep in mind that it is going to happen. Things are going to happen. You have to let them happen. But in the meantime, quit trying to prevent things from taking their own course. What if somebody was trying to prevent you from making the positive change in your life that you needed to make? What would you do? Some people can look at things that you do as things that are holding them back. You don't want to be that. You know what? Even if you find out that you are that person, and you're holding people back, you know, break away, because maybe it's meant to be some other time, but in the meantime, stop blaming yourself, number one. Let it happen. Just let it go. But keep doing what you know you need to do, because watching somebody walk away in the distance, and you see him getting fainter and fainter and fainter away, and you try to squint to see if you could see it, it's like, that's what I'm trying to say, is you could be doing something else. You know, it's one of those philosophies that I learned from somebody, that you try to chase somebody that doesn't want to be chased, they're going to keep running. You know, rule of life is that every single one of us looks behind us to see how the other person's doing. It doesn't matter how over we are of them, or how over they say and claim to themselves and others that they are over you. They're going to look back if they can. They're going to wonder what's going on. Everybody does that. We're not guilty of any crime doing that. Now, if we're trying to get back with them, that's another story. But, you know, my parents, they grew up, they broke up and got back together so many times. You know, and my dad says that, you know, my mother was the hardest person in the world to understand, but he did it, you know. I know nobody else out there has the same parents that I do. But in any event, you know, if you're supposed to be together, then you'll be together. If that's your philosophy, if you can look at life like that. Otherwise, you're probably just pessimistic. But you got to keep doing what you're supposed to do, and you can't break away from it. You got to be enthusiastic about who you are and what you do. You can't worry too much about the approval that other people have. You have to be motivating. You have to be inspirational. And if you're not, you can cause fears in others. You don't want to do that, because maybe some people are doing just fine without their fears. Maybe some people think everything's great, that their success is good. And then you come along, and then a couple times during the night, maybe you do something out of nowhere. You cause and stir up some fear, and maybe that person is still on their way to finding what they need to do with their lives, right? Maybe they're still on their way, but then you end up like shaking them up from themselves in their own territory. And then they fall off their horse and they're trying to save you because you're still acting funny. They don't know that you're thinking about them. They don't know that you're thinking about anything else but you leaving them. And so they do what they can to try to kiss your ass. They try to say everything. They try to do everything. And then that doesn't work. Because maybe all they're seeing, maybe all they're seeing of you anymore is that you're weak and that you're begging and that you've stopped what you were doing with yourself that actually inspired them to begin with. It could be what's going on, but you know, you just got to keep on the straight path and narrow. You just got to keep doing what you're supposed to do, and you can't let people that are confused with themselves further confuse you, because maybe even though you're still in the process of finding yourself, maybe you still are ahead of them, and they know that, and they don't want to distract you because maybe they know they're behind you on their path. Maybe they just don't know how to tell you, I'm sorry that I have too many problems in my life, that I persuaded you away from what you are good at, what you're on your way to finding. You can't expect anybody to ever say that to you, because you probably want to hear that. You probably want to hear them say they're sorry for all the things that they did wrong, but it takes a real man and a real woman to figure out that they need to do what they need to do regardless. If it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be, you know? Has nothing to do with if there wasn't enough love. It has to do with space. It has to do with respect. And it has to do with common sense. There's certain things people just shouldn't do, shouldn't say, shouldn't voice to the world. And if you try to tell them that they can't do that they shouldn't do it, that it hurts their feelings, I mean, you can't make somebody see your side. You just can't. They're going to eventually learn on their own that doing that, you're not going to be the only one telling them they don't like it. But if they're that stubborn and they got everything their way, they probably won't learn. And there's nothing you can do to speed that process. So, in any event, you got to do what you got to do. Sometimes repeating myself does feel good. Sometimes listening to myself feels really good because it gives me a sense of accomplishment, you know? It's like making a list. It's making a spontaneous list in your mind, in your head, and that's how you know you're on the right path. And you check it off, and then you're proud of yourself. I think that's going to inspire more people than anything. That's going to inspire and motivate people more than you trying to prove them how different you can be than everybody else. Right?